Hello, my name is Jason Flynn. I'm a principal in Deloitte's human capital practice and thrilled to be here with my colleague and fellow human capital trends author, Julie Duda, to bring you another installment of our Trend of Trends. As we get ready for the March launch of the 2025 Global Human Capital Trends Report, we'll be sharing a series of insights, taking a look back at how the trends have kind of evolved over time since we started this nearly 15 years ago back in 2011. Julie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, Julie Duda, I am also part of our human capital practice where I'm a vice president doing research projects, which is really fun. And I've always enjoyed looking back at what we've said in the past, especially in our trends reports, and think about how that played out. So much has changed since our first Global Human Capital Trends report. And all along, our annual trends reports have given us the chance to really understand each moment in time, looking at the current economic, cultural, and technological state through the lens of human workers and the enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely, Julie. And, I think on this, kind of where we're going to focus today, as I think back over the history of the trends, the issues around performance management, compensation, and total rewards, and really the interconnectivity between those three topics has really been a perennial challenge for HR and organizational leaders. And we've seen that come through in the trends kind of over the years. I know in the early years, so kind of the first part of that first decade, we really had a focus on performance management and a lot of the challenges we were seeing in that at that time. Maybe talk a little bit about what we were writing about at that time.
Yes, there was lots of focus then on what was not working, it was broken, how to make it better, to modernize it for the new world of work. Traditional methods like annual evaluations, forced rankings, these were things that were increasingly seen as both ineffective and also demotivating. We saw a trend toward continuous feedback, coaching, and agile goal setting, which are more suited to both modern work and workers. We talked about using technology for real time feedback and also fostering a culture of development with the aim of enhancing engagement, driving business results, and adapting to the changing expectations of a workforce that was increasingly diverse and tech savvy. And we talked quite a bit about the growing buzz around ratingless or possibly reviewless performance management.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that just brings back some memories, and I know we had a lot of conversations at that time as well around really kind of decoupling compensation and performance management, and having the performance side really focus on coaching and development, and the compensation side really focus on rewarding workers for the value they were creating. But I know in spite of some of those conversations and suggestions we were making, I think as we got towards the end of that decade, we really started to see some challenges emerge on the reward side, right? Some of that old thinking that had really kind of permeated things, and been organizations felt a little bit stuck at that time from a rewards perspective. Please share, can share a little bit more about what we were talking about at that time.
Yes, as we turned that focus more to the reward side of things, we really were advocating in many ways for the adoption of more personalized approaches, agile strategies, more holistic approaches to rewards, and having those strategies and approaches be tailored to employee preferences and aligned to organizational goals. Because the old formulaic approaches, those were no longer really relevant or helpful, especially in light of some of those changes that were going on with performance management. Many organizations saw this need for change, but they continued to struggle, sometimes based on just justifying the cost of total rewards, which weren't really seen as a value to the business. It was more a cost. And there was also just then the idea of dealing with much bigger kind of, I don't know if you want to call it next gen rewards concerns like transparency and fairness and social alignment. We outlined a human-centered approach that would foster lasting employee relationships and would promote the importance of innovating and experimenting with a new customized fit for purpose reward strategy for your organization to remain competitive.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then, just as we started to see maybe a little bit of progress or this focus on rewards, obviously we had that little thing called the global pandemic enter the equation, right? And really, we've come out of that, the backside of that in a pretty different place, right? A lot of new realities and challenges that we're facing. We've gone through the Great Resignation, which put this whole, battle for the workforce and trying to access the people and talent that organizations needed really front and center. And I know there was a lot of rewards activity in that time period for sure. And then now we've got the advent of AI and all the other disruptions coming. So just seems like there's a continual set of churn that's continued in this space since we came out of the pandemic. Maybe talk a little bit about the last few years and kind of
Yeah.
what's been top of mind in our trends report.
Yeah, as we've focused on these changing and changed realities, we highlighted in our trends the changing kind of expectations and influence workers have and the increased amount of choice they have around where to work, what to do, how to work, how to live, and their accompanying desire for more empowerment at work. And at the same time, an illustration of that worker agency, people were walking away from employers that weren't meeting their needs, that great resignation you mentioned. Now, organizations can react to this growing worker agency by trying to squash it, or they can try to harness it to create powerful outcomes through increasing the feelings of worker ownership and engagement, a way to increase performance that isn't performance management. We followed that with an exploration of productivity and the metrics that we've traditionally used to measure performance. And we found that the line that links worker activity to real outcomes is now blurred. It's been replaced by a complex network of teams and a demand for the kind of skills that aren't easily documented with traditional metrics. It's not about producing widgets so much as thinking of new ideas and how do you measure that? Organizations will need to identify new business focused and human focused outcomes to measure, and then figure out the metrics that allow them to do so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it just ties so nicely to our broad theme of kind of human sustainability last year and this idea of really trying to, capture the connections between those human and business outcomes. And obviously rewards has a big part to do with that whole human sustainability trend we talked about last year so much. Um, so no, as I think about kind of like looking ahead, to me, this idea of achieving this human performance concept we talked about last year, those business and people outcomes, is really going to continue to be a challenge, right? Talking our research this year is already showing that this is a persistent issue, and I think organizations are really going to have to start to think very holistically about this idea of performance and how do you engineer and drive performance with some pretty holistic approaches to really tackle the issues we see in this boundaryless world of work we're talking about.
I agree. And I think there's that human element, which will continue to be very important, as well as the continued changes in the world of technology. I think both of those will continue to be at the forefront of our trends for the foreseeable future. This look back has been so interesting,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to be launching a new trend with you, Jason, related to this line of performance and rewards insights that we've had when the 14th annual Global Human Capital Trends Report launches this March on the 19th. And we both encourage anyone watching below, or anyone watching, to go below and click the link to sign up to get the report as soon as it comes out. In the meantime, tune into our other Trends of Trends installments that are coming out between now and March 19th.
This has been great, Julie. Thanks.